When you think of classical poetry, you probably picture something timeless, right? Kind of quiet, a way to escape all the noise of the modern world. But what if that same art form became a weapon? A tool in one of the most intense ideological battles of the 20th century? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret history of how poetry was turned into propaganda in Cold War Taiwan.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll see how poetry even became a political tool in the first place. Then, we'll meet the guy who's the architect of this whole thing and unpack the exact playbook he used to control the message. And finally, we'll look at why this whole era of state-controlled art just couldn't last.
But before all that, let's start with a big, central question that really frames this whole story. In a time of war, what's a poet supposed to do? What's their role? Is it to observe, to resist, or is it to rally people to a cause? Keep that question in the back of your mind as we dive in. Okay, so to understand how an art form could get co-opted so completely, we have to go back in time. We have to look at the political climate because this wasn't just a battle for territory, it was a battle for hearts and minds. Picture this. It's after 1949. The Kuomintang, or KMT, has retreated to Taiwan. They are in a full-on state of emergency, living under martial law, and they are facing this massive, existential threat from the newly formed People's Republic of China on the mainland. For them, survival wasn't just about guns and soldiers, it was an ideological war.
And to win that war, the government rolled out a strategy called mental mobilization. Now, this isn't what it sounds like. It wasn't about drafting people into the army. Nope, it was a much more subtle campaign, all about soft power. The goal was to shape how people thought, to build this unified anti-communist fighting spirit by using culture itself, art, literature, education as the weapon.
But a strategy like that doesn't just happen. It needs an architect, right? Someone who can move between the world of politics and the world of art, pulling strings behind the scenes.
And that person was a man named Tseng Chin-ko. He was a writer, but he also had a background as a political officer. He shows up in Taiwan in 1945 and immediately sees this huge opportunity that basically everyone else missed. He realized the island was full of these local poetry societies, and he thought, wait a minute, these aren't just cultural clubs. They're an untapped network, a perfect vehicle for this mental mobilization strategy.
And this guy moved fast. He gets there in 45 and starts networking immediately. By 1948, he's already organizing a huge poetry event, bringing over the patriotic Poets' Day idea from the mainland. And by 1952, he's got his whole infrastructure in place. A relaunched poetry society, a monthly magazine, and the real centerpiece of his plan, the National Poets Congress.
He managed all this through something the source material calls structural subordination. I know, it sounds a little academic, but the idea is actually simple and kind of brilliant. It's basically when you take an independent field, like the art world, and you quietly make it dependent on and led by another field, in this case politics. And how does Zheng do it? He got high-ranking government officials, guys like Yu Yuren and Jia Jingde, to be the honorary heads of his new poetry groups. The message to all the poets couldn't have been clearer. From now on, you answer to the politicians.
So, the structure is now in place. The next logical step? Controlling the content. And to do that, Tseng and his political allies came up with a very specific, very repeatable system.
Their method was so effective because it was so simple. You can really break it down into a three-step playbook: the speech, the prompt, and the evaluation.
Okay, step 1, the speech. Every single National Poets Congress would kick off with a big keynote address from a top political figure, like this one you see here from Jia Jingde. And let me tell you, this speech was not just a formality. It was a directive. It set the ideological tone for the whole event, directly connecting the act of writing poetry to the patriotic duty of retaking the mainland.
Step 2, the prompt. So after these rousing speeches, the poets weren't just given a blank page to work with. Oh no, they were handed very specific, very politically charged topics to write about on the spot. A topic like, Taiwan is a beacon of democracy, isn't really a creative prompt, is it? It's a political assignment.
And that brings us to step 3, the evaluation. The judges would look over all the poems and, big surprise, reward the ones that best captured that patriotic spirit. This winning verse from 51 is a perfect example. It's all about looking forward to a victory toast after winning back the mainland. It closed the loop on this really powerful incentive system. Write for the state, and you get rewarded. Simple as that.
So what was the result of this incredibly controlled system in the long run? And, maybe more importantly, why didn't it last forever?
Well, this table gives you a pretty good snapshot of the prompts over a decade. And you can see the focus is incredibly consistent. anti-communism, nationalism, and even weaving Taiwan's own geography into this bigger patriotic story of a free China. For a while there, the playbook was absolutely working.
But the system had a fatal flaw. Its greatest strength was also its greatest weakness. It was completely dependent on its political patrons. So when a key government cultural group got downgraded in 1958, Cheng's resources dried up. Then his key patrons, Jia Jingde and Yu Ren, passed away in the early 60s, and just like that, the high-level backing was gone. Without its political champions, the whole movement just faded away.
This whole incredible story really boils down to a fundamental clash. On one side, you have artistic freedom, the search for personal expression and truth, and on the other, you have patriotic duty, using art as a tool to serve the nation. For more than a decade in Cold War Taiwan, that second one, it definitely won out.
So we've seen how an art form was masterfully harnessed for a national cause, how it was given this incredible purpose and power by the state. But it leaves us with this really provocative question, one that echoes way beyond the specific time and place. When art serves the state, who does it stop serving?